CNN's Jim Clancy investigates the influence the television preachers have on the government and what sort of influence they'll have on anybody in the next few years.
How much political power do the primetime preachers have in the White House and Congress? What will happen to some of the major ministries we see on television today? And what is the future of this uniquely American phenomenon we call televangelism? We'll take a look at those questions as we conclude our special report. When Israeli jets streaked into Iraq and bombed that country's only nuclear reactor, it created shockwaves around the world, including here in the United States. Concerned about a possible backlash against Israeli interests, Prime Minister Menachem Begin called one of his staunchest supporters in the U.S. Was it a congressman, a leading politician, or even the president? No, it was a televangelist, Dr. Jerry Falwell. And while there continues to be controversy in this country about the mixing of politics and preachers, there seems to be little doubt, even in international relations, that the televangelists wield strong political power in this country. Chuck Colson was just one of the famous Watergate conspirators, a presidential aide who, after admitting his role in the affair, announced he was dedicating his life to Jesus Christ.
Well, I see it from both sides because one of my jobs in the White House was to try to win special interest support for the president. That included a lot of religious groups. And I used to bring them through the White House and give them the wash, polish, and simonize and make them feel important, mainly because I wanted to win their political support. And I guess it's those experiences I had in the White House that have made me particularly concerned about the so-called Christian political movement today.
When Jimmy Carter served in the White House, Georgia Minister Bob Maddox served as religious liaison. He takes a view similar to Colson's.
We were always very careful to include key religious leaders in everything that we did, social events, political events, because they touch a lot of people. And we never did regard ministers as being crucial as far as turning the tide, or if we didn't have a certain minister, a piece of legislation would fall. We didn't regard it that way, but they were very much a part of the total picture.
Maddox says things have changed since Ronald Reagan has taken charge, and the televangelists who supported him in his election bid have won clear channels into the White House.
The mainline people, mainline denominations, have virtually no access to the White House. Surely the National Council of Churches, the liberal crowd, has no access to the White House at all.
We try to work very closely with and cooperative with the White House. I am all over the country supporting the President's Economic Recovery Program, and recently was invited there to a reception with others who are supporting his program, and he gave us a little pep talk and sent us back out to fan the fires.
They're the ones who come to the parties now, and the main lines to the more liberals pretty well have no access at all.
And so it seems the televangelists have arrived as a recognized force in American politics. But University of Virginia sociologist and author Dr. Jeffrey Haddon says their influence is just beginning to be felt. He says what most people don't seem to realize is why they will be so successful as a social movement in the future.
In the short run, I think that just as I believe that the kind of influence they had on the 1980 elections is exaggerated, I also believe in the short run their influence will not be that great. In the long run, we think from now to the end of the century, I think that it's probably the most powerful cultural, social influence in American society, precisely because they have access to the media in a way that no other social movement has ever had. Social movements are waged in front of television cameras with newspaper reporters and radio people there standing there with a microphone in people's face. You don't march on City Hall because you assume that the mayor is a reasonable, understanding kind of soul who, if you could just explain to him what your problem and case is, he would act to alleviate your grievance. You march on City Hall because the television camera is there and because it's going to beam your message into millions of living rooms in the evening. And if you can stay in front of that television camera for week after week and turn into month, you develop a following for your position. Well, these people already own the television cameras. They have time on the satellites. They have 1,100 radio stations that Christian radio stations they broadcast on.
But Haddon says the televangelists are not as powerful as they would lead us to believe. In a controversial section of his book, Primetime Preachers, Haddon dismisses as sheer fantasy the claims by Jerry Falwell and others that they have tens of millions of viewers. Falwell says Haddon doesn't know what he's talking about and that no one knows just how many people are watching religious shows. But he does agree that competition for airtime and the high costs of running a television ministry are going to force many televangelists off the air.
I think in the next 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 at the outside, we'll be back to half dozen major broadcasters.